The air was cold and stale, thick with the scent of damp earth. Darkness swallowed everything. At first, he thought it was just a deep sleep, but then the crushing weight pressed down relentlessly from all sides. His body felt trapped, confined, something heavy and unyielding surrounded him. The realization struck like a thunderclap: he was buried alive. The rough, splintered wood of the coffin pressed painfully against his back. His fingers trembled as he reached out, feeling the coarse grain of the coffin lid. Above that, a cold layer of dirt, roots, and stones pressed down mercilessly, threatening to suffocate him. Panic bubbled inside, hot and wild, his heart pounded like a drum in his chest. For a moment, all he could do was breathe in short, shallow gasps, the stale air inside the coffin growing thinner with every second. The darkness was complete, an endless void where even the smallest flicker of light could not reach. But amidst the rising terror, something deep inside urged him to stay calm, to think. His trembling hands searched the small space around him. Nails, joints, anything that could be a way out. The wood was old and rough, but it wasn't cracking. Scraping his fingernails against the lid only made his skin raw, but he refused to give in. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each minute an eternity trapped beneath the earth. From above, distant muffled sounds floated down, the faint echo of footsteps, the occasional creak of wood, voices too faint to understand. Was someone out there? Could they hear him? He screamed, but the earth swallowed his voice. The silence answered back, heavy and suffocating. Minutes turned into hours. The air grew thicker, the weight heavier. Still, he fought to keep his mind sharp, focusing on each breath, each heartbeat. He imagined the sky above, the light of the moon and stars, just beyond reach. Somewhere out there was freedom, and he had to find a way to reach it. In the crushing darkness, alone but not defeated, the night stretched on. The horror of being buried alive was real, but the will to survive burned brighter than any fear. The coffin felt smaller now, an endless prison carved from wood and earth. Each breath became a battle, the stale, heavy air tightening around his chest like a vice. The dust inside stirred with every movement, coating his tongue and throat with grit. Panic threatened to claw its way back, but he forced himself to slow his breathing. Calm was his only chance. He pressed his palm against the coffin's rough wall, feeling the vibration of his own heartbeat hammering in his ears. Claustrophobia wrapped around him like a shadow, suffocating and relentless. The walls seemed to close in with every second, the dark pressing closer, whispering that this was the end. Memories flickered in his mind, the moments before the nightmare began. The strange stranger who lured him away, the sudden blackness as hands pulled him down, the cold rush of soil falling over the coffin. How had it come to this? The injustice of it fueled a surge of determination. He tried to conserve air, slowing his breathing to shallow, controlled inhales. Time lost all meaning, minutes bled into hours as he lay still, listening. Outside, distant noises barely reached him, the muffled drip of water, the rustle of leaves, the faint thump of footsteps. They were like ghosts from another world, cruel reminders of the life just beyond the coffin's walls. His hands searched again, desperate for anything sharp or loose. Nails scratched the wood, leaving splinters beneath his fingers. The lid wouldn't budge. The silence that followed his frantic efforts was crushing, filled with the unspoken threat of oblivion. Despite the terror, a quiet voice inside told him to focus. To survive. To fight. He imagined light, warm, golden sunlight streaming through a forest canopy. He pictured fresh air filling his lungs, the smell of grass and rain. Clinging to these images was his lifeline, his anchor in the dark. Minutes dragged on, then hours, then an agonizing eternity. But as long as his heart beat and breath came shallow and ragged, hope lived inside that coffin, fragile, flickering, but alive. His fingers trembled as they probed the coffin's interior. The wood was unforgiving, thick, aged planks nailed shut tight. The darkness was suffocating, but the pressing weight of the earth outside was what fueled his urgency. Every second trapped beneath the soil was a second closer to the edge of oblivion. He remembered the small pocket knife he had with him, the only tool that might help. Carefully, he reached into his jacket, fingers brushing against the cold metal. It was dull, worn, but it was something. Clutching it tightly, he began to work at the nails that held the coffin lid in place. The sound was faint, just the scraping of metal against wood, but in the silence of the burial chamber, it echoed like thunder. Sweat ran down his brow, mixing with the dirt smudged on his face. His arms ached from the effort, but desperation lent him strength. Each nail was a challenge. The wood splintered, sending small shards into his palms. The risk was high. If the lid shifted suddenly, the dirt above could collapse in. Yet, the risk of staying trapped was far worse. His breath was shallow but steady, heart pounding fiercely. Outside, the distant sounds of footsteps and voices drifted down. Were they searching for him? He screamed, hoarse, raw, hoping to break through the thick earth. Silence answered him, but the faintest movement on the surface gave him hope. His fingers found a weak spot near the corner where the wood had cracked slightly. With renewed effort, he pried at the edge, creating a small gap. Fresh air whispered through, cool and sweet. It was a breath of life, a flicker of hope in the oppressive dark. The earth above seemed to tremble, and then the first ray of moonlight pierced the gap. He pushed harder, using every ounce of strength to lift the lid just enough for a sliver of freedom. His muscles screamed in protest, but the will to live was stronger. Inch by inch, the coffin opened, and the fresh night air flooded in. He gasped, lungs filling with life for the first time in what felt like forever. Freedom was close, just beyond that fragile wooden lid, under the endless sky. And he would fight to reach it. The faint glow slipping through the cracked coffin lid was a promise, a fragile thread connecting him back to the world above. His fingers trembling, he pushed with everything left in him, until the wood creaked and shifted beneath the relentless pressure of the earth. Outside, the muffled sound of digging echoed faintly, a desperate chorus of hope. He screamed again, raw and ragged, his voice swallowed by the layers of dirt. But this time, the sounds above grew louder, thudding footsteps, frantic voices, the scrape of tools against soil. They were coming for him. The air grew fresher, filling his lungs with cold relief. His body ached, muscles cramped from the confined space, but adrenaline surged, lending him strength to keep pushing. The lid shifted more, dirt falling away in small clumps, revealing slivers of starry night sky. A hand reached down, rough, calloused, trembling with urgency. Fingers grasped the edge of the coffin, prying it open wider. The light flooded in, burning away the darkness that had imprisoned him. The moment the lid finally gave way, his body was lifted, pulled from the suffocating earth. Fresh air filled his lungs with a violent gasp, tears streaming down his face as sunlight warmed his skin. Around him, faces blurred with concern and disbelief. He was alive, pulled from death's clutches by the courage of strangers. But even as relief washed over him, a chilling thought lingered: how close had he come to being lost forever beneath the earth? The nightmare had ended, but its shadow would never fully fade. As paramedics surrounded him, checking for injuries, his mind raced. Who had done this? Why? The questions burned hotter than any wound. One thing was certain: he had escaped death itself, but the story was far from over. The night he woke in a coffin would haunt him forever, a brutal reminder of how thin the line between life and death truly is. The taste of fresh air was a cruel comfort, freedom stolen from the earth, but peace remained elusive. Days after his escape, the shadows followed him like ghosts, whispering reminders of the coffin's dark embrace. Sleep was a battleground where nightmares dragged him back beneath the soil, where the weight pressed down again and again. His body bore the scars of survival, bruises, scrapes, the stiffness of muscles unused to sunlight. But the deepest wounds were invisible. A hollow ache lived inside, a constant pulse of fear and disbelief. Every creak of wood, every sudden noise sent his heart racing, his mind flashing to the terror of being buried alive. Friends and strangers alike asked the same questions: who did this? Why was he buried alive? The answers were tangled in shadows: an unknown enemy, a cruel mistake, or something darker. Police investigations yielded chilling clues, but no clear motive. The mystery only deepened the haunting. At night, when the world was still, he swore he heard whispers coming from the earth. The rustling of dry leaves sounded like soft voices warning him to be careful, be wary of those who lurk in darkness. The experience changed him, forever altering his view of trust and safety. Yet amid the fear, a fierce determination burned. He vowed to turn his nightmare into a warning, to share his story and shine light on the darkness that almost claimed his life. Each telling was a step toward healing, a way to wrest control back from the shadows. His survival was more than luck, it was a testament to human will, to the strength we carry even in our darkest moments. And though the coffin's memory haunted him, it never defeated him. The night he woke in a coffin was only the beginning. What came after was the true test, surviving the scars that the earth could not bury.